Hello and welcome to the Very Good Sports Podcast. We are joined once again by our very regular guest, Nick. Nick, how you doing today, my friend?
Man, I'm doing good. Just ready for Randy Gregory to follow the Packers, and we just steal him, grab him, and let him be great.
Well, it makes sense because people like making a big deal out of a player smoking weed.
Hey, you can beat the crap out of your girlfriend, but you can't smoke a little pot.
And we would get into that, but that involves me going on a rant about the hypocrisy of people rooting on Greg Hardy, rooting and getting excited for Floyd Mayweather, and wanting Ray Rice banned from football. But that's for another day.
Well, that's because Ray Rice sucks. So, I mean, like you said, that's another day.
Absolutely. All right, so one of the big things, and it was really ironic. We talked a lot about on Twitter about the pre-show discussion we had for a recent episode, and we talked a lot about player health, players. If we were in the situation, maybe you're retiring early, because you have your health with you, and you walk away with a little bit of money. And a few days after that podcast, Patrick Willis retires. A few days after that, Jake Locker retires. Most recently, Chris Borland retires. He had a great rookie season, but he walked away from the game saying, with the research he's done about the mental health of the game and then the effect damage it does to the brain, he walked away from the game. He gave up, I believe, like a quarter, 2/3 of his signing bonus. Just speaks highly of him wanting to walk away from the game. When you heard the news, what was your initial reaction?
Um, like specifically Chris Borland, like I was surprised because he was one of those guys like my initial draft eval I missed completely. I thought he'd suck in the NFL because he's not a very good athlete. So he was one of those guys who, everyone said and admitted he just loved the game of football coming in, and he worked and worked and worked to get past his extreme limitations athletically, and came into the league, and I think he started 8-9 games last year, and Pro Football Focus had him as a top 5 inside linebacker when he played. But then, all of a sudden, he just comes out and says he's done and gives away a ton of money. I mean, like you said, I think it was upwards of 2/3, 3/4 of his signing bonus. So, I mean, he's probably still pocketed close to $1 million or so. But at the same time, like, this guy just goes out and decides, that's it. Like, I mean, and more power to him. He chose his own life and his own future over playing a game of football. But really, like, I was surprised. I think everyone was. But I mean, the more you look and read into it, he had been talking with people basically since his first day in the NFL about how he really didn't see himself playing a long time, and he was a intelligent guy who did the research for himself and decided that, like I said, like it was long-term health over you know making a couple extra bucks.
Absolutely. You mentioned one thing, which is one of the things about, retiring early, and of course, the fan reaction, some people calling him a quitter, which is just ridiculous beyond belief. Because, it's still, you watch the documentaries about the brain, the damage that this game does to the brains, but it's like, why, how can you blame a player for saying, you know what, I do love this game, but for the best impact on my life, I want to walk away and be healthy and be able to live into my 60s and 70s and have a normal life. How can you call somebody a quitter for that?
Well, you got to think like fans at some point like basically feel like players owe them, and that they own these players once they're a part of their team. And oh, this guy's like you said, a quitter. People calling him a pussy, all those kinds of things. It's like, holy hell, man! Like this guy chooses his own personal health, and oh no, he quit from your football team, and now your team's going to be worse off for it. And um, I mean, I don't get how you can just sit there and be mad at a guy for choosing, well, him being selfish and choosing himself and the sanctity of, his own life, or, the future of his life, and, what's best for him. It's incredible. But like I said, I think fans, to a certain extent, once a player is signed or drafted to their team, they feel like they own that player. Um, but like you said, it's pretty incredible. But I think I think his situation is interesting too because with his own teammate Patrick Willis choosing to retire just weeks before him and playing the same position, I think that might have had something to do with the way lots of fans, specifically 49ers fans, would have reacted.
Yeah, definitely. A point a lot of people have brought up recently is that fans is short for fanatics, and it's really true. I mean, some of these people. I mean, this is a lighter note of it, but some of the people who get tattoos of their team, future Super Bowl champions. I mean, I don't understand that, fanatic. But then to take it to the point where you will see fans, if a play like with Green Bay's Brandon Bostic, people were threatening him and his family after the game. I mean, if a player leaves, he's called a traitor, of course. And just for the record, I'm sure most of our audience can spell, but for anyone who can't, it's traitor, depending on which one you're talking about. Someone who trades things, exchanges them. That's Trader. Trader is in someone which you're referring to as leaving your team, which is side note their own choice. But let's just say they're a traitor. Traitor. So there's a difference in spelling, just for the record.
I was really hoping you would spell it wrong.
Yeah, as I was spelling it, I was like, man, if I spelled this wrong, this is gonna be embarrassing.
Yeah, but like at first when I heard like all these players retiring and stuff, and I thought my initial reaction was basically that this was going to have a huge effect on the way what the NFL or the amount of people joining it. But I think that might have been a little bit of an overreaction. I think less and less people are going to choose to play football, and less and less people are going to let their kids choose to play football, in the future and that kind of stuff. But then again, got to get this hot take out there. Just like we need bad tweeters on Twitter to keep things going, we need bad parents. So if you're going to be out there and be bad parents, let your kids play football so I have something to watch on Sundays. But at the same time, like some of these guys, like Willis, he came out and said that he chose to retire, for religious reasons, whatever. I don't know. I don't understand that. But Borland is the guy who chose to retire, for concussions, repetitive hits to the head, whatnot. But when you look at his background, it's it's completely different than what a lot of players in the NFL. I mean, he grew up. I mean, I think middle upper class, that type of thing. He grew up with proper education, whatnot. So I think people from that type of upbringing may tend to stop playing the game of football or not let their kids playing because they have other means of getting to college, making money, and doing that type of thing. But I mean, people coming from the inner city, looking for that socioeconomic jump to join, or catch up with, the rest of society, or people from, the middle upper class, that kind of thing. They're still going to play football, and because it gives them that chance to get out from where you came from, and to make that type of money that they otherwise may not have been able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where looking at the future of the game, and obviously the instant reaction to when Borland retired was, how is this going to affect the future of the game with other NFL players potentially choosing to retire early? And that's certainly still possible. Obviously, more players are aware of the head trauma that can occur. But really, I think it's going to start at Pee Wee level, at high school level. And you made a great point about the, upper class families who are potentially able to provide college tuition for their kids so they can go to college, get that education, or or families who have future jobs set up for their kids. At that point, they're able to say, you know what, looking at my kid's health and the situation we're in now, it's fine. They don't need to play football to make it. We can let them just not play football, not risk their health, and we'll have something set up for them already. But people in worse economic situations, where for some of these young athletes, it will be, this is this is the only way to help my family, to raise them above, to have a better life. So I'm going to play football. I'm going to risk the future of my own life to help my family. And that really is the future of the game, where we may see people lower economic level having to play this game that we all love just for it.
Yeah, and I mean, especially when economically you look at the growth of inequality, financial inequality throughout the United States, and you don't really see that changing anytime soon. So, I mean, with the more and more people who are, financially unstable, people who just don't have money, they're always going to be looking for other options, other ways to, quickly get out of that. And, sports, football, whatever, that gives them that outlet. And if you're physically able to and have that athletic ability, if you want to call it God-given, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, and you're looking for that way out, or that way to join, to get out of that socioeconomic class that you're already in. I mean, football is always going to be there, or maybe not always, I don't know, but like at this point, it's there and it presents a good option, and it certainly will always pay well.
Absolutely. One of the things about it is because they're looking out for what can I do to help improve my family's life? What can I do to support my family? And obviously they're willing to risk their lives or their health. But that's not an abnormal thing. That's basically a thing in pretty much all people's DNA of doing what it takes to sacrifice to help provide for your family. And that's a natural instinct that people have.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I mean, it's kind of sad that the way you're going to look at it now, it's basically, I mean, it's kind of the way the rest of society works is people who don't have money are going to do anything they can, and in the way, if economically people just don't have that way out, or that financial ability to send their kids to college, do that type of thing, and the way college student loans, everything that way is going, it's just going to cater to the poor, or people from the inner cities, and and it's just the way that society is working right now, and the way that things are heading, even more specifically with the income inequality, that it's just going to, I mean, almost that we're sending in, like you said, like it's almost like how we talked about this a long time ago, how the Romans and that kind of thing, it was the poor people, the slaves fighting in those types of battles. I'm not saying that this is nearly the same, but in a sense, like the poor people were fought in the Colosseum, and that's, I mean, things haven't changed that much in over so many hundreds of years.
Yeah, and I also, I mean, even looking at the college level, NCAA, you can thank me. I'm going to spare you for at least a few minutes, maybe this entire podcast. I won't get into all your making billions off of athletes and not paying them. Anyways, but that's, you get just to get that college education is huge for these families. And then going on to the NFL level, and fans get upset about players playing for the money, which is just crap. Because really the thing is, if you put any fan in a situation where, I'm always even say with you, Nick, you're at your job, and listen, Nick, you've been doing good work here, and I know this other company, which is a very good company, is offering you a higher salary, but we want you to stay here for less. Can you do that for us?
Yeah, and the inability for people to recognize that the NFL is a business, is a job. It's no longer just for the love of the game, and oh, they're so lucky that they get to play football for a living. I don't get what people, like, you sit there and so many people, when Randall Cobb, let's just say for his instance, like, so many more teams were offering him a lot more money than what Packers were usually, originally offering. Packers were, in that 8.5 to 9 range, and teams, reportedly like the Raiders were in that 11 to 12 range. And, people are, he should stick with the Packers, win a championship, take a hometown discount, and, it's just that this, it's a game, and he's so lucky that he gets to play this game. So, he should thank the Packers for giving him that opportunity, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, this is his job. There's no reason that he should, do anything else other than take the most money. I mean, it's not like he's going into this work environment that's going to be, terrible, and it's a job, and it's going to be similar to what he does in Green Bay. And there's really no significant difference. So why not take the most money? It's a job. You work so you can support yourself, you can support your family, and live the life that you want to. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing, I mean, you talked about winning a championship and taking hometown discount. I mean, so look at that scenario, and this is unfortunate, sad part of it. I mean, let's say you win a championship 30 years from now, you've taken a lot of hits, and, your memory's foggy. You're not able to remember the championship. You may be broke, and you have to sell that Super Bowl ring, which we've seen with a lot of former athletes recently. And, you went that way, you got your little Super Bowl ring, your championship. Of course, that's not going to help your family. So, but if you get an extra $2, $3, $4, $5 million, that absolutely can provide for a future generation to your family.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. People just say, oh, going from, like I said, let's just go back with the Cobb thing. You're talking to, 2.5 to 3 million a year over 4 years, like, potentially upwards of $10, $12 million in total. That's an extra generation set up who never really, they're not going to have to worry about money. But again, it's just a game, and they're so lucky that they get to play this game for money, and it's such simple-minded thinking, and people who are unable to really just get past the surface level and not really think for themselves.
And another aspect is just, I mean, we'll see a player traded or cut, people get excited. I mean, I understand, when a cut's made that, it could be a good decision for the team, and you're happy about that. I I was I appreciate Green Bay, eventually parting ways with Brad Jones because it was a move that needed to be made both for cap room and for the fact he wasn't on the team anymore. But at the same time, this is a situation where Brad Jones and his family they're no longer employed. They're told, listen, you have to move on. And his kids could be in the middle of the school year and they have to stay there or pack up and leave.
Yeah, I'm never going to be happy for someone losing their job. I mean, in a sense, I mean, he's just a bad football player. So I can say like, I'm happy that we're going to be able to upgrade the position, but I'm not going to be happy over someone losing their job. I'm not going to go out there and get up on Twitter and tweet at them, like, oh, finally you're out of here, and which people do on a daily basis, and that's sad. Because, I mean, we all live pretty pathetic lives, so, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's whatever makes us feel better, I guess. But it's just, it's interesting. I mean, it's this, I don't even know what to say about it. Like, it's sad and disgusting because, like I said, we all live pretty pathetic lives. We'll never be able to make that kind of money, and we just live in this world of financial jealousy, and we gotta let people know that, you screwed us over. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such the fanatic thing about the game. And, I love the NFL as well. I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, but at the same time, you have to understand, these are real people out there. I mean, fans say, oh, I would play the game for free. I would play it for no money at all just to play for my favorite team. Well, here's the thing. These NFL players, there's no reason for them to have a favorite team. They need to look for the team that provides for them and their family. They need to look for the place that puts them in the best situation. It's not about favorite teams. There doesn't need to be loyalty. The only person you need to be loyal to in life really is yourself and your family.
Yep, like I said, it's a job, it's a business. You got to be out for yourself. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
But
I mean, because the NFL, you could say at any level, NFL will have no problem cutting you at any moment, whether it's a transaction and you're just not playing well or they don't like the amount of money you're making. They will cut you without blinking. So there's absolutely no reason you should be loyal to them. Be like, well, I'll stick with them even despite the circumstances of them paying me less. You should seek every possible chance you have to maximize your value and set up your family. You should take it.
right, especially in a sport like football, where the money isn't really guaranteed. Like if you're going to talk about, loyalty or whatnot, like you can. I mean, I still don't agree with it, but like if you're speaking specifically about sports like baseball and basketball, where you sign that contract and you're seeing every penny of it. Like you're gonna go out there and you sign a $100 million contract. You're terrible after year two. That team still stuck with 3 or 4 more years to pay that total of your money. And
Alex Rodriguez.
yeah, right. Like Jesus. Well, soon to be Max Scherzer and all the rest of those guys. But like in when you're talking about specifically the NFL, you know, you're like let's talk about, like let's say Colin Kaepernick or Andy Dalton's contract. Like, sure, they signed $100+ million contracts, but those are basically pay-as-you-go deals. Like they got such low limited money or guaranteed money. Basically, they only got 2-year contracts. I mean,
Well,
sure, they're going to make a ton of money, but that's just the way the NFL works. It's just none of that money is guaranteed because, you know, their union isn't nearly as strong as basketball or baseball. And it's just the way that things work. So why should you give that team any type of loyalty or any type of discount?
and you mentioned Kaepernick, and that's the funniest thing about like when the rumors going around that 49ers may trade Kaepernick. Initial thing was like, well, how are they going to trade his contract? I mean, he says $100 million contract. No, I mean, if you go and look at the deal, there's a lot of clauses in the contract and incentives he has to earn to see even half that money.
Oh, yeah, he basically got a 2-year contract of about $30 million. I mean, sure, that's a lot of money, but in the grand scheme of things, it's, you know, probably 25% of the total amount of money that that contract is written up as. But again, like I said, and it's a common theme with, like you said, fans are fanatics. Fans are stupid. It is what it is. The inability to look past the surface level and get past, you know, the original numbers, things that make people react emotionally, and you know, because we're all emotional people. But like, if you can get past that original emotional attachment to, you know, a number or a word and actually dig a little bit deeper into some type of, you know, like, oh, okay, it's just basically a 2-year contract, so it's really not that bad. But again, I mean, it's I hate to say it, but fans are stupid. It's just it is what it is, and if you can separate, like that's what the one thing I've noticed. Like, as much as I'm a Packers fan, I'm a football fan more, I think. And once you can separate, you know, your fandom to a team or a player or anything like that, you're able to see things on a grander scale, and it becomes a lot easier.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just, fans, I mean, they prove their lack of intelligence or lack thereof, I mean, on a monthly basis, whether it's criticizing a player for taking too much money or voting in a player who didn't even play that year into the Pro Bowl or the All-Star game or any of the things fans do. Like, I mean, we have Journal Sentinel comments on Twitter, which is just hilarious of the type of fans that are out there. It's just, these are real people.
With they think are original thoughts, and you know, are, you know, they think they're outsmarting the world. Like we were talking about this earlier. It's like people with Chris Borland are like, oh, if the Packers would have drafted him, he would still be in the NFL and he would be doing great things. Or, oh, I bet you if the Packers go and offer a contract, he'll come out of retirement because he loves the state of Wisconsin. It's like, what? That's insane. Like, and that's an actual thought that people have, and
It is.
it's incredible. And as much as I feel the need to troll people in that sense of, oh yeah, exactly, that's exactly what should happen, and it's insane. Like, again, but that's part of that. I don't even know what to say about that specifically. Like, but I like it to be honestly think that that's part of that entitlement thing of this guy belongs in the NFL because he played one time, and because we're the Packers and we are what we are. This certain arrogance that comes with the fandom. That, you know, if we offer him a contract, he comes out of retirement.
Yeah. I mean, another thing about it is, there's all this focus on guaranteed money. I mean, in football, really, there's not that much as you mentioned, and it's something the NFL gets away with a lot and is rarely talked about. And NFL spent so much time talking about changing the exit point, which I don't understand why that's even necessary. They're arguing over whether or not to add goal line cameras, which I don't know how that's not in the budget to add them, but anyways. But then the other thing, the main thing NFL gets away with is there's really not that much guaranteed money in NFL. I mean, sure, Sue got $60 million guaranteed, but if that was in baseball or basketball, every dollar of that is guaranteed, and those are far less violent games, far less damaging than football. But yet, football gets about half the guaranteed money, and we see it with the players who are left after years poor and in not great health.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, that's going to come back to where the NFL is going to struggle going forward, and it's going to be with I hate saying it this way. It's going to come with the wealthier and the more educated people who are going to choose to stop playing. But like I said before, keep being bad parents. Let your kids play football. I need something to root for and watch on Sundays. But in a sense, like it's going to come down. Like I said, like we went over this earlier. It's going to come down to the rich are going to stop playing, and the poor are going to have to get out of it for economic reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're even seeing with former football players who now they've been able to set aside money for their family. They're saying, listen, I've seen what football's done. I'm not going to let my kids play football.
Yeah, and I mean, they'll every single time they always say, I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had to play and set up my family for a long time, but I'm sure as hell not going to let my kid play. And, and people like you said, we were talking about this earlier, is in a sense that like so many people were saying, if I had the opportunity, I would keep playing and I would do it for the millions. Like you can't really speculate on that. Like, and if you honestly think that like, oh, you're getting paid $1 million, that's better than what I'm going to get paid for the rest of my life. Let's say you make six figures, you make $100,000 a year. Like, oh, you're making $1 million a year. You only have to work 5 years, and you're set for life. And I don't think there's a certain level of like when you deal with concussions, repetitive hits to the head, physical ailments, like and mental ailments for that matter. Like, if you're going to say that someone should choose, it comes down to a personal choice. It's not a matter of right and wrong, honestly. Like it's just what do you value as a person, what experiences you've had as a person, what changes your perspective. And it comes down to a lot of experience stuff. Like a lot of people, if you want like what do you value as a person? Do you value every single penny and maybe not being able to walk or talk properly or remember things? Or do you want to be able to, you know, be a good person, be a good family member, be a good father, be whatever you want to be, as a person? What do you value more, money or, the value or, your own personal health? And I think that comes down as a personal experience. And it's not a matter of telling a person that they're wrong for the choice that they make, but it's just funny that people come out and say like, oh, I can't believe you turned down the money, which again comes down to financial jealousy, which is really the only reason that people get mad at these players.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the scary things about this game, we're going to see, I mean, even recently, to mention recent names, we've seen it with like Brett Favre, and I tried to find the article, I can't find who gave credit to, but I'll tweet it out later. He talked about there are times now where he can't remember going to one of his daughter's events. He can't remember things that happened during his career. His memory is starting to fade, and he's only a few years out of football. Considering all the hits he took, that's only going to get worse as we go on. And he is not alone.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so many players. Like, I mean, you go former Bears quarterback Jim McMahon. Like, he can't remember going to the mailbox. Like things, and people think that these aren't over exaggeration. These are just truth and facts. Like, I mean, my personal experience. Like, I've had 3 or 4 known concussions in my life, and it affects me regularly. I mean, not nearly to the same extent. And that in itself is, it's not about concussions necessarily. It's about those repetitive hits that jolt your brain. It's not just about, oh, he only had 1 concussion in his career, he only had this. It's about having those repetitive hits that jolt your brain. It's not necessarily about that 1 concussion. But in concussions, it's going to affect the way you live physically for the rest of your life. You're not going to be able to remember things. You're not going to be, but at the same time, it's going to lead to issues in mental health too, which is, in itself is becoming, obviously getting into the public more and basically becoming, it's the more we learn about it, it's just as dangerous, if not more dangerous than any physical ailment you'll ever face in your life.
Absolutely. I think you brought up a great point about not just concussions, but I mean, during plays, like in the trenches where players are hitting each other, there's just, one helmet hits against another. Repeated, small, but it adds up the head trauma you get. And it's just I mean, this could go on 50, 100 times a game. And you figure 16 games a year, let's say you play 10 years, that's thousands of hits, miniature hits you're having. It's going to affect you long term, and just it's a sad reality of the game. And even while the game may be safer, these things are still going on.
Yeah, and I mean, basically, at this point, when you're learning about like people who are, starting to leave the game earlier, and players who are dealing with CTE, players who are dealing with other mental health issues, players who are committing suicide and everything. It's not about the players who end up getting the most concussions. It's about those players who play in the trenches every down, O-line, D-line, linebackers, and it's because of those repetitive hits to the head that continue every single time you're firing off the ball, and your helmet's hitting a shoulder pad, helmet's hitting another helmet, you're getting slapped in the head by a defensive lineman, something like that. It's not about that one big hit that's just going to end your career, like let's just say a receiver who's been through a lot of concussions, whatnot, an Austin Collie, something like that. Yeah, Wes Welker. It's not about that big hit or two. It's about that repetitive motion or that repetitive jolt of the brain. And I think that's where it's going to, where you're seeing players, who are going to start to leave the game earlier, and whereas players aren't really going to want to necessarily play at all anymore.
Absolutely. And another thing you mentioned is another part of this is that with these hits, there's going to be the mental head trauma. There's going to be the depression, the suicidal thoughts, and eventually some. May he rest in peace, John Merriman, who decided to took his own life after just years of dealing with the emotional and mental pain of the game. And it's just obviously we learned he had CTE. All these players have CTE.
You mean Junior Seau?
Junior Seau. I'm sorry. Wow. I screwed that up. Yes, Junior Seau. My apologies.
I think John Merriman favored my draft tweet the other day. So
yeah, my apologies on that, Junior Seau. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but let's get up. These players who are dealing with these types of mental health issues, and before you even some people still will try to mitigate these issues and say that they're really not that significant, that all these people deal with it. And I can tell you based off personal experience, it's not. This shit sucks. I would never never put it on anyone else to deal with some of the things that I've dealt with in my life, personal, mental health issues and whatnot. So I think that's why, personally, I'm so I have a very strong opinion on these types of things. And like I said, I would never ever consider letting my child play football. I mean, actually, the thought of having a child is frightening of itself, but I wouldn't let my kid ever hold a helmet. No thanks. But at the same time, mental health issues, it can lead to death, and it's if a sport like football where you're having these jolts, where your brain is just getting knocked around left and right, it's only going to increase the chances of you developing these types of issues. And like we kind of hit on, these types of issues are things that you're going to have to deal with for the rest of your life. And what do you choose? Being financially stable and mentally unstable, or being having your physical health being in a quality state for the rest of your life. And personally, I think based off personal experience and what I would tell anyone else and everyone else is, if you have perfect health, or maybe not perfect, but if you're in good health, that's something you could never take for granted.
Absolutely.
No amount of money would ever change my mind on that.
Absolutely. The human brain is an incredible thing in many ways, but even from the mental health aspect, and this translates to even more than just football. I mean, we've seen recently with Milwaukee Bucks, Larry Sanders, who took a break from basketball. He said he's been battling depression and mental health issues. And yet, despite this, he was getting ridiculed by some fans for being weak and walking away from the game.
Yeah, and it's disgusting. And when you see that as a person like myself, he went to rehab for those types of things, to actually a place here in Wisconsin called, I'm trying to think, it's called Rogers Memorial Hospital. It's a rehab center here. It's just down the road from me, actually. And it's a place, I mean, me personally, I'm open to talk about any of my mental health issues and things that I've dealt with. I've been there. It is not a fun place, man. and these are issues that, like, he was there for, you're talking month, 6 weeks. That's a long time. But these are issues that, like, when you go there, these are people who are struggling to just get by on a daily life, getting out of bed, dealing with all these different types of things. I mean, people struggle, don't want to eat, they don't want to do anything, they don't want to live, and it's a scary thing. And for you to go ahead and say that, oh, this guy who's making, a ton of money should be immune to these types of things, it's a scary thought.
Absolutely. I mean, it's as if we put athletes on this pedestal as where, well, nothing bad can happen to them, nothing where anything health-wise can happen to them. But these are real people. They're not robots. They're real people. They have confidence issues. They have depression. They have all these things that go on, and it plays a pivotal role in their daily life, not only on the court or on the field, but just at home.
Yeah, and in my personal opinion, and I might be wrong in this, but I think at the end of the day, every single time it comes down to financial jealousy. Like, the ability that these people have an earning power that none of us, I mean, 99.9% of us will ever have. And this feeling that it always comes down to, it's like, oh, well, this guy makes a ton of money, so, he should be immune to these things. And I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I've said it a couple times, is financial jealousy makes us, doesn't, it blinds people from human emotion. It blinds people from sympathy for human emotion. Just because a guy is rich, or, he has a ton of money, it doesn't mean that, he's going to be able to give you $1 million so that his health can, get better, he can get better, become a better person, do all these different things. It's like you said, these people are human too. They're not immune. That amount of money doesn't change the way that they're going to feel as a human. It doesn't take away the chances of becoming, how do I put this? Like I said, it's basically, you've hit on this a couple times. They're human. It's pretty simple.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just no matter how much money you have. I mean, there's still like ongoing issues of like depression, mental health. Doctors are still trying to figure out what the best thing to do with it is, how to handle it, how to ease that pain. And no matter how much money you have, it's still going to be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's the problem with like the different mental health and all that kind of stuff. Like, the stigmas that still live with it. What people, and especially athletes, they're supposed to be these physically strong, mentally strong, confident people. They're supposed to, a lot of these people live in different, a facade that, that things are still great. Like, I'm, the big man on campus, do all these different types of things, but it's, so they live with this. I mean, they have the added stigma of, that athletes and these physically, freak athletes, freak human people, like, I mean, maybe not necessarily freak human people, but you know what I mean? Like, in a sense that these people have that added notion that they're supposed to be better than, everyone in any aspect of life.
Absolutely. You mentioned at the universities, and one thing that you pointed out to me before the show, which was a Fox Sports article you were reading, and I'm pulling it up now. Credit the Fox Sports article about mental health, and that college players deal with, both male and female. It was by Justin Ching. So you read it. What were your thoughts on it, and what stood out to you?
I think nothing was really. I don't think anything was really all that surprising in it. But I think it's a good read for most anyone, in the sense that these people still, that it really just opens your eyes to that they deal with anything that any of the rest of us do, and the fact that it's still the amount of attention that. Let me bring this up real quick. That these players, are still going to be dealing with mental health issues and whatnot, and that, I mean, while that I mean, kind of like what we hit on before was that these players, are human too. That we don't see them as, we see them as immune to any type of mental issues because they're supposed to be, um, that they're supposed to be these freak humans, these immune to any type of physical, mental issue. That they're supposed to be these model, that they were created to be better than anyone else, and that the way we put that and we think that, so that puts an extra stigma on them, so that they're supposed to feel that way about themselves, and they're going to really you know avoid seeking out any type of help, because if they do and it gets out, that they're not this, the perfect human, the perfect physical specimen that we portray them as.
Absolutely. And that's like I was just reading. We have this. It's real perception of athletes, and that really perceptions of people, who are dealing with mental instability, who are they're having depression or confidence issues, and we have this perception of, oh well, that makes them weak, that makes them lesser of a person, and it's just when that carries over into athletes, and where so they're afraid as an athlete for Division 1, Division 2, Division 3 program, where they're afraid to bring that to a counselor or to a coach, because if they do that, then that will hurt their perception, and it could lead to fewer minutes on the court or just less respect from people. So they're not willing to discuss it and get the help they need.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it like I said, it's then I mean, as a person who deals with these types of things, and stigma is really something that's hard to get past, and it's hard to admit to yourself that you're having these issues, because it can be embarrassing. Um, as much as it is starting to be known that it affects a decent part of the population, whether you'd want to admit that about yourself or not. But as an athlete who a lot of people find athletes to be role models, or people look up to these people. It's got to be. I mean, I can't imagine. It's got to be even that much more difficult to admit that you have issues just like anyone else, and that that you're not this perfect human being. You're not this person who's immune to any of these types of issues, and that we set these people on a pedestal and that they can't be touched. But I mean, just like you said, they're human, just like the rest of us.
Absolutely. That's another thing about these athletes and at the college, well, even professional level, is they are under immense pressure. If you're at college, it's you're battling confidence, you're battling the mental health, you're battling your schoolwork that you have to get done, you're battling the hours of the day where you have to manage, try and do your homework, where you have to go to practice and train, be in the film room, be in the gym, working out. You have all those pressures going on. You want to appease your parents, you want to make the players, your teammates happy, you want to make your coaches happy. Or at the NFL or professional level, all these things go on. You don't have school, but everywhere around you, you have family members, you have friends pulling at you saying, "Hey, I just need a little bit of money. Can you help me out with this?" You'll give them a little bit of money. They'll keep asking for more, and it just is this constant cycle of pressure on you.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I don't know if we had originally planned on getting to this, but it's just when reading up on Randy Gregory, who probably is going to be a top 10 to 15 pick before failing his drug test at the combine. I mean, he his story of going back to why he originally started smoking weed was to deal with the anxiety and the pressures that come with being a well-known athlete, a big-time athlete, and dealing with things that most of us just don't have to deal with. I mean, most people who start doing drugs or whatever, any of that type of thing, don't do it because they think it's cool or it sets them apart from anyone else. They do it because they perceive that they have so many pressures that they can't necessarily deal with, and they need some type of outside influence that's going to really help them get through these different situations. No, I don't think it's we sit there and we dawn on these people for, oh, what an idiot for smoking pot, or that. I mean, it is silly because, in a sense, it's the biggest interview of his life, and I mean, I can't really give him much. He's an idiot. I mean, you can't give up smoking weed for 6 weeks. I mean, But back to my original point of why these people start doing these different things, like I don't think it's that out of the ordinary for a 20-year-old kid to look for some type of outside influence that can help them get through, severe pressures that they perceive that they can't get through in the first place. I mean, drugs, alcohol's a drug, but um, I think it's not about doing something because you think it's cool. It's about doing something to help you get through a daily life. And I think that in of itself, I mean, I don't think we can judge his. We can because in a sense because I mean it's gonna hurt his draft stock because it's a silly thing for you to be using drugs if you can't give it up for 6 weeks prior to the biggest interview of your life. But I mean, for the way he originally started doing it, I mean, a lot of us don't have to deal with those added pressures of being an athlete. Like life is tough enough for each and every one of us. I mean, like a lot of us deal with anxiety issues and are looking for different ways to calm it. But can you imagine living your life plus those added scrutiny of millions of people every Saturday who watch your football game? I mean, or who all of us idiots on Twitter who sit there and rip apart you as a prospect of an athlete. I mean, they probably don't care what we have to say, but any of those national media members, whatnot, like each and every day, like you think your life is tough. Imagine having the scrutiny of millions of people across the nation every single weekend.
Well, I think that scrutiny, but I think even bigger of that is that, with Randy Gregory, his future is on the line here. All these workouts, all of them determine where he'll go in the draft, how much money he'll make for help his family. All this is online, weighing on him. So, there are a lot of stresses that go into it. If you have an issue with him failing the test, obviously it's referred to as the idiot test because even fans know that you're going to be tested at the combine. So if you fail it, it doesn't speak highly of your intelligence, or whatever. I can understand that. If you have an issue with Randy Gregory smoking weed, your priorities and perceptions I have an issue with that. I mean, of course, this could be the same people who have an issue with someone smoking weed, but they're all excited about Greg Hardy. Of course, I will say this: if Randy Gregory just shines as a rookie, has 10 sacks, makes Pro Bowl, no one's going to remember the weed arrest. It's all about results and what you produce. If you play well, people will forget basically about whatever you do.
Yeah, like the NFL's cracking down on their domestic violence, and 3 of the major guys, 2 of them are still in the NFL, and the one who's not in the NFL is Ray Rice. And you know why he's not in the NFL? It's not because he punched out his wife. It's because he fucking sucks at football. Hey, I mean, you don't. It's not because there's a damning video evidence of him beating the shit out of his wife or knocking her out. It's because he averaged 3.1 yards a carry. You don't belong in the NFL when you do that type of thing. If he was still out there giving you 4.5 yards a carry, he'd be the starting running back of one of the 32 football teams in the league. It's pretty simple. I mean, it's as much as we want to say we're cracking down on these other types of issues, we're not. That's just a facade. It's and it's funny is my take on that whole situation with like a Greg Hardy. If the Packers would have signed him, I'd have been completely okay with it because it's to me it's I want my team to win football games. A, B, if you're looking at the NFL and their players for a moral standard and you're teaching your kids about that, they're going to be pretty fucked up in the end. I mean, Jesus Christ. But at the same time, it's like some team with, I mean, he's a trash-ass person. He beat the crap out of his wife, or, whoever that was. I can't remember exactly. Same with like a guy like Ray McDonald for the Bears now. I mean, just a pile of crap. But some team was going to sign him. And that team was going to get a good player, and that player was going to help them win. So in a sense, like as much as I want to say like I don't really want just a pile of shit person on my football team or representing my team, some team was going to sign him, and he was going to help that team win. So why not be the Packers in that sense? I mean, I guess there's probably some level of hypocrisy to that statement, but I want my team to win, and I don't look at my football team or the players on that team as a moral standard for the way I live.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're a parent and you're advising your kids to have their role models be athletes, I would first see if you could be a role model for your kids. That's probably the better influence, someone they can look up to, just, I'm not a parent, but, if you want to try that, being a role model, you should go for it. I mean, why not?
Can you imagine having a child? Like I can't get like as much as I sit here and I talk about like, oh, I don't want my kid to play football. I don't want my kid to look up at a football player to be the role model of what they want to be for the rest of their life. But then I sit here and I just laugh inside my head because the thought of me just having a child is just so frightening. Like not even for myself, but for the rest of the world. It's just the world's a better place if I never reproduce.
Well, I mean, there's that, and there's also the aspect of, let's say you had a child, and your child's like 10 and is just begging you to like they love football so much they want to play, and you're going to be in a position where it will be very tough to tell your child who loves the game that sorry, I'm not letting you play.
In I I think at that point it probably will be tough the first time you tell them that no, you're not.
Yeah,
You can go play flag football, sure, that's fine. I don't care, but you're never putting on that helmet. You're never playing tackle football. I don't care what your friends are doing. It's not my fault that their parents are bad parents and that there's all this information out there to tell them that hell, if you play, like if you play a couple of years even in high school, it's gonna increase your chances of developing these different type of issues. Uh, in the chances that you're ever going to go make money doing this are slim to none. Um, so I mean, like I've harped on this before, be bad parents, let your kids play football, so I have something to watch on Sundays. But I mean, in a sense, like I'm never going to let my kid play football. I think it'll probably be tough to tell them the first time, like, no, sorry, you can't play football, even though your friends are. But oh, here's another thing. When people like will say, "Oh, well, I played football. I turned out just fine," or I made some of the best friends in my life playing football, or football taught me you know, the ways of life of not quitting and getting through things and being a fighter. Yeah, well, you could do that in just about any other sport. Um, you can go play basketball and you're gonna go through some struggles, some pains. You're gonna suck one day. You're gonna want to quit, but it can teach you to to get through those things, and you can go through the same thing. Don't act like football is some other on another level of oh, it's a grown man sport. It beats the crap out of you physically. Well, that's not a good thing. Like like there's enough to a kid's life to like say, oh, well, I got knocked down physically and I got back up. You don't think the average child or any average kid who goes through a normal not pampered life like some part of the populations do and whatnot. But there's enough struggle, enough. Each and every one of us gets knocked down enough in life to have to fight to get back up and to become the people that we are. And if you need an extra, if you need that extra, activity in life, it doesn't have to be football. It can be another sport. It can be basketball. It can be baseball. It can be soccer. Hell, it can be rugby. It's not nearly as dangerous as football. But in a sense, like, don't set like this, or you don't put football on a pedestal that it makes you a better person when there's plenty of other options to, if you're looking for that, thing to, make friends, develop bonds as, over, with the different people, or looking for that way to, to challenge yourself as a person and to make yourself a better person in the end. There's plenty of other options. Football's not just it.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned people talk about how, I learned about camaraderie and never giving up from football. But I mean, really, I played high school football. I can tell you exactly, at least from my perspective, getting to know my teammates, the camaraderie, never giving up. It wasn't the playing football aspect. It was the fact that, being with them a lot, being with them in the afternoons, evenings, working with them, training with them. And then it was also never giving up. I mean, we started 0-7 and just losing constantly. That teaches you that you just can't give up, and eventually you get to that point where you win the last game of the season on Eli Manning, David Tyree type play, and it's a rewarding feeling. What you can get that in basketball, you can go 0-10, win on a game-winning three, get that same feeling. It can be in baseball, lose 10 straight, you hit a walk-off home run. You can get that feeling in other ways with baseball teammates, with basketball teammates.
Yeah, it's like you see these people like, oh, football taught me so much in life. It made me become a better person. You can do that in just about any other sport. Plenty of other activities in life that are going to knock your ass down, and you're going to have to get back up from. Football's not this, special level of, don't put it on a pedestal. It's not the special level of, oh, it's going to knock you down physically. It's going to hurt you physically more than any other sport. That's not a good thing. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, you're going to go out there and you're going to mess up your knee. Oh, well, I tore my ACL and it made me, have to rebuild it. And, oh, yeah, well, now your knee's fucked for the rest of your life. Like, I don't get that. Like, there's just this sense of, that for some reason, breaking down your body eventually is going to make you a better person, or it's going to strengthen you as a person. But, like, you can do that in any other sport, but limit the amount of, physical issues you're going to have for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And one thing also, going back to another point, I will say it won't necessarily be all bad parents making their kids play football. I mean, there will be some where they want their kids to go to college, and due to their economic situation, they're not able to afford that. So football or basketball, but for this case, football is the only way for their kid to get an education in that scenario.
Yep, and like you said, I mean, that's going to be. I think that's not necessarily bad parenting in that sense. It's going to be that's your only choice, and when you comes down to not being able to go to college or bettering yourself as a person, not necessarily bettering yourself as a person, but bettering your opportunities in life and your ultimate ceiling of where you can go in life, and not necessarily falling into that same category that your family's been in for the past generation, the one before that, whatever. In that sense, that football is your only opportunity to really go ahead and to get into college, getting an education, and bettering off your life and bettering off the future of your family. That's not bad parenting. That's just realizing that there's only one option and you have to take it.
Absolutely. We have a few minutes left, so I will leave this option because we've spared the NCAA and its hypocrisy, and it's making billions off athletes and calling them student athletes and ripping scholarships away and all that fun stuff. Shall we spare the NCAA for another day, or shall we talk about all of their issues?
I think we can spare them. I just have one thing to say. They can all just go fuck themselves and really and live with their hypocrisy and live with the idea that for some reason they think that Jameis Winston wearing a jersey at Florida State makes no money for the school, that it's not worth money for him. It's just, that they don't put the name. It's about the name on the front of the jersey.
And just a reminder for everyone.
It's the widest argument ever.
And for a reminder for everyone watching March Madness, because NCAA loves sponsored things. Next one that will happen, but they're not going to talk about it. This three-pointer brought to you by McDonald's Flurries, the thing that our athletes can't afford on our budgets.
Right? They're going to go hungry tonight, but good thing you made that shot.
Yeah, and all the talk about, people watch this, for the teams. They don't care about the players. Players are nobody, so they don't need to be paid.
Hey, it's not about you, or it's not about it's about us,
Absolutely. Nick, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, talking about NFL player health, about players retiring early. It was a fun time.
No, I enjoyed myself too.
And where can people follow you on the Twitter?
At draft_Packers. It's the worst account on Twitter with 1,200 followers.
I can verify it. It is the second worst account on Twitter. Not the worst.
It's certainly up there. I mean, I don't really have much to say.
There's still Skip Bayless.
But I might slide into your DMs.
Yeah, there you go. So
I have a lot more to say when it comes to your DMs because I can be ruthless and say whatever the fuck I want.
Follow Nick and he will slide into your DMs.
Yeah.
Just do it. Everyone, thank you for watching.